It's time for another review. And if there's one thing I could say, Star Wars Rogue One is fucking awesome. So I've been waiting a long time to talk on this. Star Wars Rogue One is finally out on Blu-ray, and I feel like it's time for me to review it. Now, I know when Star Wars was bought by Disney, and, well, Lucasfilm in general, a lot of Star Wars fans out there got really upset. You know, the Timothy Zahn series is no longer canon, none of the comic books, none of the Last of the Jedi series. And there were some really good books that came from that. But if you're asking me to substitute the death of Han Solo versus the death of Chewbacca, I don't know that I can get into that. I'm one of those few fans out there that really does remember watching Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in theaters. Sure, I'm not quite old enough to have seen A New Hope in theaters. Back then it was just called Star Wars. But my entire life, I've obviously been a big fan. I've grown up with this, and it's been a big part of my fandom, my individual life path. I was never that into Tolkien. You know, I don't really like wizards and dragons and that sort of thing. Sure, on occasion, they can be sort of entertaining, but you give me some space wizards, a little bit of light swords, and I really enjoy that. And Star Wars has always been part of my personal zeitgeist. And I think for a lot of folks it has been too. And there's been a lot of hate from the fan community thrown around about how they've been handling the property. And I have to patently disagree. Now, I really enjoyed J.J. Abrams and what he did with the Star Wars Force Awakens. I like that we're continuing the Skywalker legacy. I like that the original stories that were being told from the first movie back in '78 are continuing on. However, that said, I don't want to throw the prequels under the bus, but they're not great movies. And if you're going to go to a 7-year-old me and say, you know, when you're in your early 20s, Star Wars isn't going to be as good, I don't know that I would have believed you. I would just be excited to see Star Wars on the big screen again. And we got that in the late 90s with the whole revamped original trilogy, all the special editions. And you know what? It didn't make them that much better. And then we continued down that path with what the prequels were. And they weren't great. They didn't do much to elevate the original films. In fact, if anything, they just had ideological and logical conflicts with those movies. I mean, come on. Darth Vader is a kid creating C-3PO? I don't need that. Darth Vader and C-3PO and R2-D2 completely forgetting that they've ever known one another? Come on. There's a lot of problems in those movies. And that's why, altruistically, I can't be an apologist for George Lucas. I can't be an apologist for what he did with the prequels. Sure, you gave me Darth Maul. That's a great character. You gave me Count Dooku. He's not too bad. And honestly, seeing Palpatine's rise through power was pretty exciting. But you gave me a lot of things that detracted from the overall story I love. And that's why I'm so gassed on Rogue One. Not only do we have a movie that exists in Star Wars canon as it currently stands, and exists as ostensibly a prequel, it's a prequel that gives so much more depth to the original series, that does what it should do, elevate the stories that I know and make them better. Now, sure, we all know during production there were a lot of problems. Well, what we're going to hear from Disney, who knows how many problems there were, but we knew there were a lot of reshoots. And if we look at another movie that came out around the same time with a lot of reshoots, we're looking at Suicide Squad. Those reshoots were, who knows? I'm going to say garbage because that film was garbage. All we know from Rogue One was that there were scenes in the original trailers that never that never showed up in the movies. And yeah, there were certain ones of them that I would have really liked to see in the movie. But if you can do last-second reshoots, and it still gives me an overall quality product as a whole, I'm completely on board with it. Darth Vader's castle. You know, the idea that someone outside of the Empire realized how bad, how destructive the Death Star would be and built in a failsafe, then now I can kind of understand more how, albeit a Force sensitive, but still farm boy from Tatooine, can now destroy it just like shooting womp rats back home. It gives an overall larger scope to the entire Star Wars canon. You see finally the rebellion as a group that doesn't necessarily get along, as a group that is infighting and has wet works and isn't always making the right choices, but just trying to rebel, trying to go against this autocratic, terrible governing body that they see as a detriment to the galaxy. And the characters that we see, and the fact that they give everything they have for something that will happen not in this movie, is, to me, fantastic and fascinating. And a Star Wars movie I've been waiting for so long. It's not asking you for a lot of logical leaps. It's not asking you to say, well, yeah, I've seen these films, but now I have to shoehorn this in. It relatively seamlessly implants itself in an existing universe, gives you a compelling story, and gives you an end. Like I've talked about previously, I do enjoy, especially with Star Wars films, this idea of a continued story. And we see that in The Force Awakens. It's going to continue. Wait a couple of years. You don't have the answers yet. You're going to clamor for them, but they're not quite here. Salivating, waiting. I really can't wait. I want to speculate. What are they going to do? Is Rey a Kenobi? Is Rey a Skywalker? Who is she? Oh my God, how does Finn play in? But to have a fully contained movie, a movie that going in, you know the protagonist can't survive, but the noble sacrifice, what they're able to do in the auspices of that unique story, and how that completely changes how we view the original trilogy. It's not Mon Mothma and a group of completely ideologically flawless people fighting against a vast evil. It's people. People doing the best that they can. People saying that this is wrong, that I don't necessarily agree. And then small sects of those people saying, you know what? I don't even agree with you. I'm rolling the dice. I'm going. Right or wrong, let's do it. That brings, to me, humanism to Star Wars. I don't need, oh, it's Darth Vader as a kid. Here's Boba Fett as a kid. Now, they had some hard times. That's how they came out to be how they are. I don't necessarily need that. I need what I've been exposed to with the original trilogy and how that came about. I need how that continues. So, while I normally give very negative reviews, at least to this point, Star Wars Rogue One gets tip of the hat. I don't know that I've ever seen a film, and Prometheus, I'm looking at you, that has made me feel more like I want to revisit what I already thought I knew and loved. I want to revisit a film that I can give the dialogue for from credit scene to credit scene, because now you've given me a new filter to view it from. And thank you, Disney. Thank you, Star Wars, for giving me this film. Is it perfect? I don't know that it is. But does it exist in a fantastic realm that really feels like it could have happened before the original films and make them seem deeper? Yes. Sure, there's some Uncanny Valley stuff, especially watching it not on a giant theater. Some of that plays out a little bit more than it did for me in theaters. But I'm still going to watch this film into the ground. I'm going to rock that till the needle breaks. So, if you haven't seen Star Wars Rogue One, and you've watched this review, I really haven't spoiled it. Sure, they all die. If you didn't know that by now, that's your fault. But check it out. in my opinion, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, it truly is a deserved entrance into Star Wars canon. And it makes me excited about what they're going to do. Han Solo solo films, other prequel movies that establish these characters. How much more are we going to understand about them? From this alone, we no longer see Han Solo as this cowardice character that doesn't want to get involved with the rebellion because he's only interested in profit. We see what it truly means to stand against the Empire. And we now understand Han Solo's trepidation. The just zero-sum game that he knows he's walking into when he finally brings the Millennium Falcon back down to that trench run and says, good luck, kid. It is, to me, fantastic to see not only taking the source material and building on it, but taking the source material and making it better than it was. So, I hope you dug the movie. If you didn't, let me know. I'd love to hear alternative opinions. However, really for me, for something that I've cared about my entire life, I think it did so much to extol what's come before it and to make me excited about what's coming in the future. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next video.